when you're getting your invoice, a lot of customers currently are taking out their checkbook, writing a check, and then sending it with the driver. That transaction from operator to driver could potentially be spreading germs or the coronavirus, and that is what we are trying to put a stop to. That is also at a federal level what the United States government and what other governments around the world are trying to put a stop to. All right. Today I want to talk about two things. One is the current status of the U.S. pork supply chain, or protein supply chain, I should say. And two is once we finally get through this and your restaurants open back up, what are the things that your customers are going to absolutely demand or require from you in order to feel safe in your restaurant? So number one, a story came out yesterday and it broke on most major platforms this morning about Smithfield, about their Sioux Falls plant. It's a pork processing plant, makes up for about 5% of the pork in the country, and they closed down. Let's see, on Saturday, said that 238 Smithfield employees had active cases of the coronavirus, accounting for 55% of the state's total. So obviously this is a big problem for supply chain, for protein supply chain, and food processing supply chain across the country, across the world, really, because we have not gotten this thing under control. So they have shut down. That is the fourth plant that we've seen in the United States so far. Cargill, Tyson, and JBS have also temporarily suspended production in plants in the U.S. as well. So we are expecting to see maybe a few more cases that are like this. And of course, what it does is it puts a substantial amount of demand on the rest of the production plants. But now, with dine-in restaurants being closed, that has taken a back seat, so it's not as big of an issue in restaurants and the volume that's being demanded from restaurants as it is on the other side in retail, in grocery. So people are still buying pork, still buying chicken, still buying beef, and there is most likely going to be a breakage in the supply chain in some areas from just 5%, 10%, 15% of the production being stopped. So what I mean by that is the entire supply chain, the entire protein supply chain system in the United States, it affects more than just a restaurant, or it affects more than just the end user. There are farmers to consider, there are distributors to consider, and seeing the cracks in the Sioux Falls and these other locations, just in those individual plants, are going to have a much broader, much wider range of effect on the food service industry and on the grocery industry. So a comparison that I can make is in the financial markets, when we saw last September, the repo markets broke. The interest rates went up to like 7% overnight from the 1% zone, meeting the overnight borrowing from institutions and banks created a situation where the repo market, or the fundamentals of the financial system, broke. Now, the effect of that is now being seen across all markets. It's being seen as a liquidity crunch. And it is now 6 months after the initial breaks in the system occurred that we're seeing a lot more problems, a lot more challenges. So I'm not saying that the supply chain is going to break entirely, but seeing small cracks like this have much larger, possibly not understood fully right now, effects in 6 months, in 9 months, in 12 months. So something to keep in mind. You are definitely going to see more plants close, and hopefully not too many, but we are going to deal with it as it comes, right? So that's all I'll say on that. The second piece here that I wanted to touch on is, once we finally do get through this and your restaurants are able to open, what are the things that your customers are going to be demanding? What is going to make them feel safe, and what can you do as an operator to bring them a certain level of comfort and security while they're dining at your restaurant? There's a list that was sent out to me this morning from a gentleman that I work with, and I wanted to read a couple of these points. So the very highest on the list, this was a collection of data. So the surveys were sent out to individual consumers through a series of food service publications that most people would probably already tap into if you're watching something like this. So R&R and QSR and other publications like that. So very highest on the list is regularly/visibly wiping down tables, kiosks, and other things people touch. So that's going to be a huge thing. Customers are going to want to see people wearing gloves, washing down surfaces. When somebody gets up and leaves the dining room, somebody comes over and cleans down the table in front of other customers. So people are going to want to see that each of the areas, the trash cans, the door handles, handles to the bathroom, POS system, if anybody's touching it, after each use, they're going to want to see those things cleaned, wiped down. So 71% of people said that they were going to need to see that. All right. Second in line is 57% of all the people taking these surveys said that they would need to see more food covers / sneeze guards / enclosed cold cases, etc. So that was the second highest demand. So if you have, I would imagine that buffet style restaurants are not going to do as well coming out of this as maybe they've done in the past. So like a Mongolian type setup or a salad bar, something like that. But if you do have that type of operation where it's self-service, maybe soup or chili, you're going to want to have food covers, you're going to want to have sneeze guards, you're going to want to have potentially even somebody there serving the food for the customer. Next in line, providing disinfectant wipes for me to use or for the consumer to use. That was 54%. So the rest of these are going to be about 50%. So half of people said that they absolutely needed this. Another half said that they could do without. So it would be up to you, but I would highly advise putting some sort of safety precaution in place to make sure that customers are feeling safe here. So providing disinfectant wipes for me to use, employees visibly wearing food safety apparel, or PPE is what it's been referred to lately, as in gloves, masks, etc. So visible food safety inspection results. If you have an in-house, somebody going through and checking with a thermometer, checking meat, checking the temperatures of different products, and you're recording it somewhere, maybe have that set out in the open. There might even be a way to put, instead of writing on a piece of paper and putting it on a wall somewhere, to broadcast that on a screen. If you have a bar and you have multiple TVs, maybe one of them has the most recent security and food safety check that you have with the time that it was done. That's just an option, an example. More space between the tables / no communal seating. So that landed at 50%. So 50% of people are saying that they are only going to feel safe, or what they're going to absolutely require from a restaurant is no communal seating, which is really challenging because that communal seating, high top communal bar type area has become extremely popular. And I mean, I myself enjoy going and doing a communal seating, sitting down with a couple of friends or with my fiance, getting a beer and sitting next to a group of other people. It's just, it allows more of a kind of a picnic type atmosphere. And it's really enjoyable. So I'm surprised to see that. And that could be a little challenging for a lot of bars and restaurants to have that type of dining room as their primary draw of why people go there. Next in line is no open containers of food. That should be obvious. Unless it's raw food in the Mongolian type setup that we were talking about, or some sort of a buffet, you should never have open containers of food. You should at least have plastic wrap covering it. If restaurants made it so you don't have to touch door handles, okay, 38%, that's kind of a weird sentence, but 38% of people said that they would need a restaurant or require absolutely a restaurant that you don't have to touch the door handles. So there's always that the little foot knocker. It's on the bottom in a lot of bathrooms. So when you wash your hands, you don't want to touch the door. You can pull the little foot handle. So that's an option. Or automatic sliding doors. or no doors. If you're in a place like California or someplace in the West Coast that the summer weather is fantastic, you're going to want to maybe just leave the doors open. Okay. Next in line is enabling mobile ordering for contactless payment. This is huge, and this is something that if anybody has read through or seen a summary of the CARES Act, which the payment protection program from the Small Business Administration came out of. So the CARES Act is that big act, the $2.2 trillion that was passed by Congress 2 weeks ago. There is a portion there about a digital dollar, or trying to get away from a cash version of the dollar. So we're seeing this across really all countries right now. China kind of led the charge. There are videos a few weeks back of Chinese officials actually confiscating dollars and lighting them on fire, burning them to try and get the coronavirus under control. So this has been a long time conversation, and the coronavirus has accelerated this conversation, but a lot of governments are going to be pushing back on the actual physical dollars and checks. So going onto a digital platform. We see that in distribution across my company, across other companies. A lot of customers are being urged to get put onto an EFT or so electronic funds transfer, or a payment that is digital. So when you're getting your invoice, a lot of customers currently are taking out their checkbook, writing a check, and then sending it with the driver. That transaction from operator to driver could potentially be spreading germs or the coronavirus, and that is what we are trying to put a stop to. That is also at a federal level what the United States government and what other governments around the world are trying to put a stop to. So seeing that customers are going to be demanding that as well, that's an obvious. I think that's something that we are collectively going in the direction of, depending on which side of that argument you want to be on. Some people see it as, oh my gosh, that's kind of a crazy situation, and I can't believe that we've gotten to the point where we're on the verge of becoming a cashless society. I'm a little torn on it. I think that there's always a use for cash for end settlement, final settlement, taking something and giving it to somebody else. And with a digital type dollar, that is not that's not really possible. All right, so moving on to the very last one, serving everything individually wrapped. Only 33% said that they would absolutely need that or absolutely demand that. And I think that so long as as people are wearing gloves and they put utensils into a bag, or they put different things that could be individually wrapped into a bag, or at least keep it separate and segregated from other people's food and other people especially, you should be fine to be doing what you were doing before this, meaning just serving things separated. Okay, so those are all of the requirements from customers once we get out of this that I wanted to go through. And this ties in really nicely with I think I called it my ultimate guide to navigating the coronavirus. I'll put a link somewhere up here to that video. And as always, give me some feedback on this. If you have questions or have anything that you want me to highlight in a next video, or that you want me to cover, please let me know. Follow me on Twitter @FoodServicePod. Subscribe to the channel, ask me questions, engage. We're all here. We're in this together. We're going to get through it and have an awesome Monday. Get outside. Stay safe. Thanks. Bye.